Okay, welcome everybody and good morning. This is our call to order for our December 4th regular meeting of the Mason County Commission. And Michael, would you do us the honor, please, of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
With the honor, thank you. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we go into roll call, if you don't mind, I'd like to make note and point out that we lost a very great man here recently, President George Bush Sr. We lost him, and with that, we lost, I happen to think, a very fantastic person who was a great example of somebody that knew how to work with other people, love other people, and not to mention a great veteran for this country, 18 years old when he signed up, and he went out there and continued to serve his whole life. And I'd like to take a moment for a moment of silence, but before I do, if you don't mind, I'd like to give you a couple of my favorite quotes from his. The American dream means giving it your all, trying your hardest, accomplishing something, and then I'll add that giving something back. No definition of a successful life can be anything but include service and serving others. Another one that he had for myself was something along the lines, which is somebody else's quote originally, but I heard it from him, and that was preach the gospel every day, and sometimes when necessary, use words. So with that, if you don't mind, can we take a moment, please, of silence for a great man and a great president? Thank you, everybody, and may his family take this gently. With that, we will move into roll call, please.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
And Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
here.
Commissioner District 3, Terry Drexler.
Here.
Item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Do you have any correspondence to come before this body?
Yes, Mason County Fire District 16 sent in a request for extension on the 2019 budget due date. And Educational Service District 113 sent in 2019 levies for Mason County School Districts.
Thank you. Item number 4.2, news release, 2019 solid waste rate increases stat. Bart Stepp. Bart, take your time. We've got not much to go to here, and a lot of hearings coming up at the end.
All right, Commissioners, public, I have a couple of press releases here. The first relates to solid waste increases. Per Mason County Resolution number 61-13, disposal rates at all Mason County transfer and drop box stations will increase by 3.5% beginning January 1st, 2019. As directed by Resolution number 61-13, fees will be increased each year by the amount of the October to October Consumer Price Index for the Olympia metropolitan area. This increase is to cover the annual cost increase experienced by the county to operate and maintain the Shelton, Hoodsport, Union, and Belfair transfer and drop box station locations. So that's for the solid waste. And then I also have the 2019 water and sewer system rate and fee increases for North Bay, Russellwood, and Beards Cove. Per Mason County Resolutions 146-08, 05-09, and 06-09, all water and sewer rates and fees at the Mason County owned and operated Russellwood, Beards Cove, and North Bay Case Inlet water and sewer systems will increase by 3.3% for the 2019 calendar year. The increase corresponds to the April 2018 consumer price increase for the Bremerton area for the one-year period ending April 2018. This increase applies to all charges associated with the referenced water and sewer utility systems, including monthly service rates, connection and permit fees and other related charges, as well as covering the annual cost increase experienced by the county for the operation and maintenance of the above referenced water and sewer utility systems. Notices will be mailed out to all Beards Cove, North Bay, and Russellwood utility users because of these rate changes.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Is there any other correspondence or organizational business to come before this body?
No.
And we will move on to item number 5, which is our open forum for citizens input. You will be given 5 minutes per person, 15 minutes total time limit. If you wish to address the commission on any item that is not on the agenda, we ask that you raise your hand and be recognized by the chair. We'll ask you to come forward and identify your name and perhaps where you're from. With that being said, is there anybody in the audience today who would like to speak to the commission on any item that is not on the agenda? So she is going after you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tom Davis. I'm a Mason County resident in District 2. And because it is the holiday season, I chose not to speak yesterday because the inevitable was, in fact, the inevitable. It was the budget process is what I'm referring to, or the budget itself was going to be adopted. It was the one and only time we had a chance, the public had a chance to speak. And quite frankly, when you adopt a $114.5 million total budget without a single question coming from the audience, I'm a bit concerned. But I do understand that that it's sometimes difficult, and the budget itself is complicated, so people don't normally want to say something that's not correct. But what I thought would be warranted was a further explanation from the commissioners. This is an enormous budget. It basically, grossly speaking, it's $18 million over last year's gross budget, $4.4 million over the current expense budget of last year. And there's reasons for that, and I'm aware of some of those reasons. However, I don't know if the general public would be aware of those reasons, and I think it would have warranted a further explanation instead of we did the best we could. That, of course, goes without saying, but at the same time, you cannot have that magnitude of numbers and just let it hang in the air. It's just not a good idea. You can't expect the people to absorb that without some sort of explanation. So that's basically what I wanted to say. I also just want to let you know there are questions. People do ask questions. Maybe they're afraid to ask you questions because they're afraid to, look a little uninformed. But I get a steady stream of phone calls, steady stream of emails of people who want to know what's the particular issue and so on. And the only thing they might get from me, and certainly wouldn't be firsthand information, but I would try to give them both sides of the issue, the downside and the upside, not just one side. And then those decisions that you make in context and with some history. That's the advantage of being able to be here for such a long time, to give that added information and just say, oh yeah, they did that. So believe it or not, more times than not, I kind of agree and understand where you're coming from. But that's not my job. My job is just to be a civic-minded citizen, which I try to do. But there's a lot of information that I think you could impart upon the citizenry that there's certain opportunities that you fail to pick up on. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on that or no? Tom, I'd like to point out, I don't know that anybody's afraid, because I get phone calls and stuff on a constant basis. As a matter of fact, somebody in the room that we had a long conversation with just the other day on some issue. But last night, and I kid you not, at 1 o'clock in the morning, I received a phone call and answered questions. I answer them because you never know, it could be somebody that actually is in trouble or needs me. So yes, I do answer those. And, but even at 1 o'clock in the morning with plenty of questions. So I don't know that I'd say people are afraid to ask because they come at us at all times. Is there anybody else who would like to speak with the commission on any item that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, let's go ahead and move forward with the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Stretch it out longer, guys. There's a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. Any further comments or additions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Item number 7. in slow form, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minutes from November 5th and November 26, 2018's briefings as presented.
And I will second that motion.
It has been, it has been moved and seconded for the approval of the minutes November 5th and November 26th, 2018 briefing minutes without amendment. Any further additions or subtractions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. Next up is the approval of the action agenda. All items listed under the action agenda will be passed with one motion unless, of course, somebody in the audience would like, or commissioner, would like an issue taken off for a separate vote or to be able to testify for the record. With that being said, you will be given an opportunity after we read them to ask questions to help you to decide whether to have it taken off for a separate vote. Commissioner Schutte, will you read 8.1 and 8.2? Commissioner Drexler, 8.3, 8.4, and I will read the remainder, 8.5, 8.6, and 8.7.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Item 8.1, approval to authorize Public Works to utilize the county MRSC roster to select construction project inspectors and enter into agreements. Item 8.2, approval to have the board sign a letter to Governor Inslee requesting Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration, PSAR, budget appropriations to support Skokomish River Basin restoration efforts.
Item 8.3, approval of a 3-year subscriber agreement with the Public Safety Testing for entry-level law enforcement and corrections officer testing. The annual rate for law enforcement officer testing is in 2019 is $2,160. In 2020, $2,224. In 2021, $2,288. And the annual rate for correction officer testing in 2019 is $1,080. 2020, $1,112. In 2021, $1,144. The total annual rate for 2019 is $3,240. For 2020, $3,366. For 2021, $3,432. 8.4, approval to have the chair sign the hold harmless and marketing agreement with Liberty Mutual Insurance Company to offer a voluntary discount insurance program to employees.
Item number 8.5, approval to appoint Bo Bakken. Why does it say Commissioner District 1? To appoint, for a position that represents the area for Commissioner District 1 to the Mason County Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board for a 4-year term ending December 31st, 2022. Approval of warrants and treasurer electronic remittance, claims clearing fund, warrants number 8060527 through 8060709 for a total of $1,342,709.70. Item number 8.7, approval of the resolution appointing Diane Sheasley as the county engineer effective December 10th, 2018. Hi, good morning. Now that all these issues have been read into the record, is there anybody out there that has any questions that would help them to decide whether or not to have it taken off for a separate vote? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, on 8.5, there were 2 applicants. Did the other applicant withdraw or just not accept it? For that,
No,
for the Behavioral Health Advisory Board?
no, that I know of.
It was between the two of them. We had one position open.
Oh, you only had one position?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Well, I did catch your question. Yes, we have only had one position open.
Okay. And just, was Mr. Bakken, was he solicited to join this committee did somebody ask him to join the committee, or did he just volunteer on his own volition?
I think both, because he was already doing things within that framework, and the people that were looking at some of these applications in the past. But he was also solicited, and but he wanted to do it beforehand. But I know that I did ask and hope that he would come forward
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
because of his history. Any other questions? Okay, with that being said, there's no further questions. Is there any item that anybody would like taken off for a separate vote?
8.5.
8.5. Commissioners, are there any other items you would like taken off for a separate vote?
No.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of items, our action agenda items 8.1 through 8.7 with the exception of item 8.5.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded for the approval of the action agenda, item 8.1 through 8.7, with the exception of 8.5, which will be taken up as a separate vote. Are there any comments?
Mr. Chair, just want to point out and express gratitude to the commission and county staff on item 8.2, sending a letter to Governor Inslee requesting consideration for additional funding for projects out in the Skokomish Valley. Information is going to be forthcoming, but we were able to receive $13.6 million from the United States Army Corps of Engineers to get work started there, design work next year and construction shortly thereafter on some of those projects that have been talked about for quite some time. And so this is the next step in that in order for us to make sure we have all of our local match dollars in order to get those projects moving forward. Our county staff at Public Works has been working very, very hard on this, and it's a testament to their stick-to-itiveness in getting funding. And so I look forward to another successful ask and appropriation from the legislature to restore habitat and improve resident safety in the Skokomish Valley.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to congratulate our Public Works Director, Jerry Houth, on the successful recruitment of a new county engineer, and I look forward to meeting Ms. Sheasley.
And me, welcome aboard, Ms. Sheasley. With that being said, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Next up is item number 8.5, approval to appoint Bo Bakken for the represented district of Commissioner District 1 to the Mason County Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board for a 4-year term ending December 31st, 2022. With that being said, would you require more description of that, or? No. Okay. Then I will allow for public testimony at this time, if you would.
Thank you again, Commissioners. It's Tom Davis. Let me say, hasten to say that this has nothing to do with Mr. Bakken. He's you know, I don't know him personally, but he presents himself as just a wonderful individual, and I think you're probably lucky to have him on that committee. But the process is always a little disturbing to me when a particular person is solicited by a county commissioner to apply. I think that deserves some notice and maybe revisit whether you actually want to do that. If people are so driven to participate on committees, citizen committees, then they should be motivated, self-motivated, as opposed to being asked. There's also, of course, there's a consideration that Mr. Bakken is part of an agency that is looking to expand up in the North County. So there's a you know, it would be nice if he had a better relationship with the commissioners. So when that process comes up, I'm not saying that's the case. All I'm just saying is that it just complicates his volunteering just a little bit. The other thing I'd just like to mention, and I'm just taking this opportunity to kind of mention an overview about how people are picked for the committee, is I think it's important for the commissioners not to communicate to the applicants what their preferences are. If it's a citizens committee, then I think you should have faith in the committee to come up with their own priorities and their own decisions. That's the whole purpose of the citizens committee. If you indicate what your preference is, what you'd like the outcome to be, I think that defeats the very purpose of a citizens committee. And having sat on a bunch of them, just either on them or more likely just in the room, I've noticed comments that would indicate that there's been a strong communication, or at least on the part of the recipient, that the commissioners would like this process to go, or an outcome to be, how could I say this, preconceived. And I don't think that's the purpose of the Citizens Committee. So when you review these applicants, it would be best just to let them find their own way. I have great faith in the ability of the citizenry to come up with their own point of view. Thank you.
Just for your knowledge, Tom, just, the question was, did I ask him? And it's not like I actually just asked him. It actually happened about 4 months ago, in passing on a different issue. I said, I think we're gonna be having another, because we were actually arguing about a grant or some way it was being put out there before. I said, I hope you will apply. But that is still, it's not that in-depth, but it did still happen, so I didn't wanna,
Thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate that.
All right, is there anybody else who'd like to testify on this issue? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of item 8.5 to appoint Bo Bakken from Commissioner District 1 to the Mason County Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board for a 4-year term ending December 31st, 2022.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and second for the approval to appoint Bo Bakken, represent Commissioner District 1 to the Mason County Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board for a 4-year term ending December 31st, 2022. Any comments?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to fill out our citizen positions on the Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board. Mr. Bakken comes to this board with a host of experience, not only in the fire service, but as a leader in this community on opioid response. And I look forward to him bringing his perspective as a first responder into the conversation. In particular, as we deal with housing issues in this county, his work and his experience have given him a different perspective than most, perhaps, in terms of the housing needs and issues in this county. And I think he'll make a tremendous effort to help move our county forward as we get work started on this important committee.
And I think that's important. I approve of Mr. Bakken's appointment as it was on our consent agenda, because I think it's very important with the pool of money that we have that we do a strategic alignment, as it says in the resolution, of the monies, because we can't solve all the problems in this county with this amount of money. And so having somebody who is very knowledgeable about how the opioid response is being done in the county, I think would help that alignment, bringing the knowledge he brings to the table. And so I very appreciate the fact that we do have somebody that is involved in this county's response to the opioid crisis.
I also want to point out, as was made clear, he is truly the leader in our opioid issue that we're dealing with. The stuff that we've been doing wouldn't have been happening without him. He's the glue that's kept it together and the engine that's been driving and pushing it. But aside from that, the opportunity that you get a chief from a fire district to volunteer and step up is huge. But more than that, he also has history. This is representing a specific district, a district that he's been in for 20 plus years or more, in every corner of it. So I think he has a better understanding than I could ever ask of anybody else. So again, I consider ourselves lucky that he did step up, because I don't know where he's going to find the time, but he will. He actually always seems to show up. I never see him miss meetings. So.
And I would just say, in regards to the process, I certainly trust the process that we have. I think we do a fair job at vetting people that come forward, and we do our best to pick who we think will offer their best judgment for these citizen committees, and appreciate everybody who steps forward to serve.
Okay, with that being said, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries, and we will move on to item number 9, department heads and elected officials. Are there any department heads or elected officials that would like to speak at this time? And hearing none, I thought she had a speech. Hearing none, we will go ahead and jump ahead for a minute to item number 11, board reports and calendars. We've made up our time, but we can go ahead and just slam through that if we can. Commissioner Schutte, if you wouldn't mind going first, Commissioner Drexler, and then myself.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One item from last week, I had an opportunity to attend a joint meeting between what was formerly Fire District 9 and 16, and they executed the documents and the resolutions to formally merge as a result of the recent election. And they'll now be called West Mason Fire. And I think this is a great step forward and I'm confident that they can be an example and a model of regionalization in our county to provide additional public safety resources to folks out there in the western part of the county. And so I appreciate the work of their commissions and now their joint commission on seeing through the rest of this merger. Looking ahead, I may be attending the Ruckle House Growth Management Act meeting on Wednesday evening if I can get back from CTAC in time. Then also later this week, I have the RIA 14 Planning Group meeting, the Skokomish Watershed Action Team meeting, and the Mason County GOP Women's Christmas Lunch, and then back for additional Skokomish Watershed Action Team work in the afternoon with the Conservation District and other partners on the funding request that we supported the letter to Governor Inslee on today, and then back Monday for briefings and our regular meeting.
Thank you.
Last week, following our commission meeting, I attended the North Mason Chamber of Commerce, and I appreciated their recognition of my role as a commissioner over the years. Had the Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Advisory Board meeting, in which we all met the new Employment Security Department director, who I think is really going to be a phenomenal service to this state. She spoke about her intention to promote what's it called? Career-connected learning in our schools, and brought some examples of the European model, specifically Switzerland. This woman was an ambassador to Switzerland under the Obama administration, and probably most importantly is that our Workforce Development Council works under a federal law called the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. And she was one of the authors of that bill, so she knows this crazy piece of legislation we're trying to enact. And so it was a good meeting. I attended the meet and greet for all of the Shelton City manager candidates. I think they've got a really good pool of folk. And then we had the consortium of the Pacific Mountain Workforce Development, in which we heard a presentation about a $2.4 million grant that they received to help people that are get into the workforce after recovery from drug addiction, as well as training of folks in something called peer recovery, which is an area in the behavioral health world that there's a workforce shortage for sure. And so I'm really glad for this grant, and I hope that we all see a significant help here in Mason County. Attended the Belfair Parade. Following today, we'll have a Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting, and then the Oakland Bay Watershed Group, and then I will attend the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging Advisory Board meeting. I will be attending the Ruckles House interviews regarding the county's involvement and county's reaction to growth management. I'll be attending the Economic Development Forum that for all the regional economic development councils, and then the Economic Development Council holiday party, and then back here for briefings on Monday.
Okay, Memorial Hall. After that, I met with a business owner of a shipping yard up in the North Mason area with potential for some great things that are happening up there. I had to go away for 3 days to represent the county at the risk pool. Wonderful organization. The hard part for me is I like information dumps, but instead the way they work it is it takes 3 days to give me 3 hours worth of information, and that's just the way it works. But we're lucky to have them. It's a great organization. Then I came home. I met with the Port of Bremerton's chair. I also attended the parade. It was wonderful. I love my community. I can't help but get a little emotional when you sit there and you look out and you see your whole community standing together. And we're talking a lot of people all singing Christmas Carol. I can't tell you. I live in the greatest place in the world. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. But very, very enjoyable. And then I was late. I came at the end of the left board meeting today. I will be going to the Ledge Day for the Farm Bureau, so I'll be in Olympia for that. I also will be attending the Ruckles House meeting on Growth Management Act and the effects on the county. We will also be together at 2018 Regional Economic Expo for the EDC. I will be seeing you at the GOP Christmas, the women's lunch Christmas. I'll be seeing you at the EDC holiday event.
'Tis the season.
I also have a Trails in Potluck. You and I will also be in the same location for the John L. Scott party.
Yes.
And that brings us back to briefings, and then we start all over again. Okay, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 10, which is our public hearings. Item number 10.1, we will open it. Public hearing to consider 2018 open space application and consider an amendment to the 2017 current use application from Kim and John Oliver. Staff, Diane Zorn.
Good morning, Commissioners. Diane Zorn, Support Services. So as stated, this is a public hearing to consider 3 applications into the open space program. 2 are from 2018 and 1 is from 2017. The 2 2018 applications are from Richard and Marguerite Hassett, and the assessor's recommendation is to place 7.52 acres into open space. And the second 2018 application is from Robert and Angela Barnes, and that's a transfer from the designated forest land program. And the recommendation is to put no more than 7 acres into the open space program. And the third application is actually from 2017 from Kim and John Oliver, and they're requesting that the acreage be reduced. They originally applied for and were approved at 1.97 acres, and they've asked that 1.32 acres be placed into the program.
With that being said, is there any questions from the audience for staff in regards to this presentation? Yes.
Yeah, Diane, who's making the recommendation? You said it's recommended?
The assessor's office.
The assessor's office is still making the recommendation under the old
The current program,
requirements?
yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? We'll close staff testimony, thank you, and we'll open it up for public testimony. Is there anybody in the public who would like to testify on this issue? Anybody in the public who would like to testify on this issue? Hearing none, we will close public testimony.
I'm sorry. I think it might be, are you an applicant?
Yeah, I'm Kim Oliver.
Kim Oliver. If you'd like
Should I
to.
explain the, okay.
If you'd like, we'll open it back up for,
I'm Kim Oliver at 80 East Railway, and I'm just asking for a reduction in the amount of open space that I was granted, because I realize that we need a little more space for our homestead. I want to put in a berry patch and another storage place for a car and stuff. So that's all it is.
all right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify on this issue? One more time, anybody? Hearing none, we'll close public testimony and move to Commissioner deliberation. Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion. I move to approve the 2018 applications and the amended 2017 application into the open space program as recommended by the Assessor's Office for the following parcels: 22029-41-00020 Hassett, 42125-12-00010 Barnes, and 42123-76-90161 Oliver.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded for the approval of the 2018 applications and the amended 2017 application into the open space program as recommended by the Assessor's Office for the following parcels: 22029-41-00020 Hassett, 42125-12-00010 Barnes, 42123-76-90161 Oliver. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. That hearing is closed.
And Commissioners, one thing I wanted to note, Ken Van Buskirk did email his support of the applications, and I forwarded that to you and to Melissa for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 10.2. We'll open the public hearing to consider the amendment for Title 15 Development Code, Section 15.13, reinstating hearing examiner procedures for code enforcement cases. Staff, Kel Rowan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kel Rowan with the Mason County Planning Department. This is an amendment to Title 15, our Development Code. Last year, or the previous year, the hearing examiner procedures for code enforcement cases was taken out of the code just in order to make everything administrative. And our code enforcement team has been successful in voluntary correction agreements, but there are some cases that would be assisted by the use of the hearing examiner, and we want to add that back in. It does not eliminate the ability for the code enforcement staff to continue through the administrative process if they're successful that way. So the code changes would look the same as they were before they were taken out.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, I know it's in the briefing document, but for the public that may not have taken a look at it, can you talk about the recommendations of the Planning Commission?
The Planning Commission did recommend approval to add the section back into the code. So they did recommend approval unanimously.
Further questions for staff? Any further questions? Hearing none, we will close staff testimony and move to public participation comments. Would the public like to testify in any way on this issue? Anybody from the public like to testify? Hearing none, we will close public testimony and move to commissioner deliberation.
Well, I think that that tool in the toolbox is going to be necessary. I appreciate the effort that the Community Services Department has done to try to figure out how to get our code enforcement more actively working and solving the problems and issues. And I think the administrative decision idea was a good idea, and I'm kind of curious about what some of the issues were that would work better with the hearing examiner. But I think that as many tools as you have and many avenues as a citizen would have, as well as the county, is a good thing. So I'm in support of this amendment.
I concur. This is a good housekeeping item in the code.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve amendments to Title 15, establishing a hearing examiner process for civil violations.
Well done, considering you didn't have that. I was ready to pass that over to you because I noticed it wasn't on there. Good job, Commissioner.
Can you
Second.
repeat it?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the commission pass the amendments to Title 15 Development Code, Section 15.13, reinstating hearing examiner procedures for the code enforcement cases. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. That hearing is closed. Next up, hearing number 10.3. We will open the public hearing to consider code amendments. Title 17 zoning, section 17.12, adding duplex, triplex, and residential as permitted uses in the village commercial VC district in the Allen Urban Growth Area, UGA. Staff, Kel Rowan presenting.
Good morning again, Kel Rowan of Mesa County Planning. So this is a code amendment to Title 17.12, which is the Allen Urban Growth Area Village Commercial District. Currently, the district allows a variety of commercial uses as well as fourplexes, allows multifamily, a minimum or at least 4 units. That's not to be confused with units per acre. It's just a use of at least 4 units. And so this amendment would allow duplexes on parcels that are already 1/2 acre or less. It would allow triplexes on properties that are already 3/4 acres or less. And then it also, when this went to the Planning Advisory Commission, it was recognized that residential is not allowed with the commercial use in any way. So we also added residential, 1 or more attached to any other permitted non-residential use, or in other words, any commercial use could have at least 1 or more residential units attached. And that could be on the second floor or on the same floor. So the Planning Advisory Commission did recommend approval of these 3 additions to the code.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff in regards to her presentation? Any questions? Hearing none?
I guess I have one question, and it was,
No, you can ask.
yeah, my name is Vicki Betzinger, and we live in Allen. The last statement that you made, I was a little unclear. When you changed the coding to allow residential, can that be just strictly residential without any commercial entity attached with it?
It can as a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex or more. You cannot have a single family residential unit as a standalone
Okay.
within that village commercial zone in Allen.
Okay.
Any further questions? Yes.
Question is, there's regs within the village commercial, such as, there's like lot size. Does that still apply? Like there's a 9,600 square foot minimum, does that still apply to like you build a duplex or what have you? Because there's like at least 8 parcels that I know of that are under that.
Right, so those lots would be considered legal non-conforming in lot size,
Right.
but it'd be the creation of new lots would have to meet the minimum lot size. So it doesn't affect those that are already smaller than the 9,600. They could still be built upon. They're just considered a legal non-conforming lot
Okay.
size.
And I guess that would answer the next question. Most of the lots north of Lakeland Drive, I don't know about south, but north Lakeland Drive and just off the highway are, even though the database, the mapping system in the county shows them as a parcel certain size, all of them almost have never been combined. Only 1 or 2 have been combined. So they're technically all 4,800 square foot lots. And so I guess that, by saying it, you're fine as a non-conforming, as long as you make it fit that. As soon as you create a new lot, it has to be 96, and most likely if they create a new one, it will be 96. So,
Right.
Okay.
Jeff, Commissioner has a gift for you. You'll like this, it'll help you in the future. It's all broke down.
Appreciate the fact that staff had put together a map that showed of the existing lots
Yep.
in that district,
What
which
can be
ones
done
would
there.
be eligible for both
Okay.
types of housing.
Our staff has been excellent on this, by the way. Well, with that, is there anybody else who has any questions in regards to the staff's presentation? Hearing none, we will close that aspect of it. Thank you very much, Kel. Wonderful job. And we will move to public testimony. Is there anybody in the public who would like to testify? Go ahead, Jeff. Come on out.
Jeff Terry, currently just barely a resident of Belfair, like 4,000 feet from Allen. And that's only because my wife wanted more space. Anyway, just a couple things. One is, as you know, I was involved in the early creation of the zoning regs back, I think it was 04, 05. And so I understand what was the intent then. I understand what's happened since. I've testified a number of times, both at Plan Commission meetings and I think other meetings related to zoning regs within the UJ of Allen. So the bottom line is we're making progress. It's better than it was, because basically you had a situation where it didn't pencil out for commercial, but you couldn't build residential. And so as you can look at, if you look at the parcels within the UGA, you'll notice like there is a big zone where nothing seems to have happened. So I'm happy now. One question that goes in my mind is why we took adding it to that zone versus changing the boundaries like of R2, which is a residential, which in most cases is adjacent to this. In other words, was there a reason why we picked, adding it to the commercial code versus using the residential code that we already had in R2?
I just have a personal view on that, but it's not an official view from the county. Anybody else like to
I
answer
guess I
that?
don't understand the question.
I'll do my answer, and that might explain the question.
Okay.
The reason where I am is, as you know, when you start changing things in residential, you have to make, it's like a balloon, we have to make up for it somewhere else and make things work. This is still a commercial zone,
Right.
and it still needs to stay a commercial zone, so that we have that equalization, the ability to have commercial in that area. That's my opinion.
Okay.
And with that, we also found it didn't work. So I want to point for the record. You said you were involved in the beginning. That means we've been dealing with this village commercial for years. So it was all your fault, right? That's
Right.
Just wanted to clarify.
Well, community, we went through the process. That
Yes.
I appreciate where you're going, and that doesn't mean like anything that I wasn't wrong at a point in time. To say that more and more the older I get. You get enough history, you reflect upon it, and you relook at it.
Jeff, you work hard for our community. I've served with you on a lot of those boards. You're pretty incredible.
And the reason I bring up this whole issue is the fact that you have about 45.5 gross acres in there of village commercial in the zoning of Allen. And in the last, at least since the zoning's occurred, not to mention before, but there was other reasons before, water, sewer were a problem before, but since water and sewer and since the zoning, there hasn't been even in the VC type that much commercial development. And so my concern is that we were locking off areas and kind of, you had development in Lakeland and coming close, and then you had this big gap, and then you had just the core doing something. And my concern is that people at least have something they can do with their property, because the way it was, at least, and it's getting better with what you're proposing today to amend the code. It's just, I was wondering why we didn't take existing zoning and just, shift it and apply acreage, given the fact that none of the lots have been combined, given all these other background facts that,
Would you like to answer that, Kel?
Sure. So I agree. I think that both Belfair and Allen need a good overhaul. And so we're looking into doing that at some point. We need to find funds and staff time. But in the interim, we did, in the planning side, we just were seeing a lot of calls and people having property in that village commercial zone and being hamstringed with what they could do. And so we thought this would be a interim solution to move forward, but recognizing we do need to look at both Allen and Belfair overall and their zoning codes.
Right. There is a problem. Nobody's brought it yet, but in the R3 zone of Allen, a similar problem. You have a minimum lot development size, and pretty much it's multi-family, and nothing's happened. And it's been 13 years, 14 years, and once upon a time there was a proposal to do like 45 townhomes up in this 8-acre piece, which would fit fine, but if you try to do it today, it wouldn't fly.
Thank you, Kel.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else, Jeff?
When you get to that point of trying to work Allen and Belfair together, just look at the parties, because the last time we did that, it started okay, but it just got kind of you're shaking your head and say, yeah. Well, just look at different things, because I didn't know at the time, but certain parties in the past had suits against each other. They resolved them, but that doesn't make a real. It's like getting in and having a whole bunch of exes and divorce, and it's like all together. And it's like it makes it hard to solve problems, because in that meeting, you can ask Larry Coppola, but the Port of Allen director, it seemed like everybody was there not to get anything done. They had nothing but problems, but no solutions. The last time that we, created a committee to try to solve and try to integrate some of the code, because Bonnie Knight and I and Jack Johnson and Rick Anderson worked at trying to combine a couple of the residential zones, and we're pretty successful at that. But when you try to get it in front of that group, every time I created a list of things to discuss, we got to maybe one, and it was always a contest. So anyway, that's my part.
That contest is still being fought today.
No, I comprehend. I'm just saying, be careful. And obviously I'll try to serve on that when it comes up and try to put my 2 bits in it. So I guess in short is, I appreciate the effort to try to, fix it. I think in my own opinion, it should have went a different way, but at least we're getting there and going in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify? Please.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Betzinger, and as I indicated earlier, I'm a resident of Allen. I inherited some property from my mother that had been in the family since 1894. 2 parcels. One, there's a residential home on the parcel, and the other parcel is vacant, and it's listed as village commercial, even though it doesn't meet the minimum requirements of 9,600 square feet. Our our intention, my husband and my intention, is to sell our home in Lakeland Village and remodel the home that's existing now, my folks' home. And our hope was we would be able to build a garage on the vacant lot, but we're hamstrung because of the way it's coded. So I'm happy to hear that there's going to be some review of the existing UGA coding. I just hope it doesn't take too long because you know, we'd like to be able to use the property that was left to me with the intention that we could actually utilize that property. So.
Now, are you guys still doing good on, you're looking at getting rid of that road that separated the two properties?
We have filed all the paperwork.
You filed all that? Then after that, you'll be able to unify the properties and be able to move forward? Still looks good? Okay.
Yeah.
We've been working on this for a while, so.
Right, right.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to testify on this issue? Anybody else who'd like to testify? Hearing none, we'll close public testimony and move to commissioner deliberations.
I think it's ironic that we're looking at this a day before we meet with the Ruckelshaus Center to talk about what growth management successes there are and what failures there were. And I think that the efforts, I appreciated the efforts of the citizens that they came to the table, but the micromanaging, I'm sorry, of the whole Allen area, I think has done nothing but cause problems. And we heard testimony regarding the group that we tried to pull together to do some, at least some shared type of development regulations between Belfair and Allen. And it reminded me, you know, how the failure of that effort, it reminded me of a comment somebody made at a previous Ruckelshaus listening session, where the problem with growth management and citizen involvement is that you have the same citizens every time, and they generally have an agenda. And so your planning commissions, your citizen advisory groups, those things, when it's the same people over and over again, it just makes it really hard for the fresh blood that comes in. And I hope that whatever effort happens regarding cleaning up our code in Allen will take it to heart, the fact that those with an agenda will generally stop things from happening. I appreciate the fact that this code amendment is in front of us to at least allow the market to decide how an area that isn't developing will develop. I think that's another problem with growth management, is that there's no market factor in so much of our code development, because we want to encourage certain types of development, but if they don't come, then what do? Sit and look at vacant properties. So I do approve these code changes, and I hope that we can really get to a place with the Allen Urban Growth Area and Belfair to where we're being more market responsive more and more.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the code amendments to Title 17 zoning, Section 17.12, adding duplex, triplex, and residential as permitted uses in the Village Commercial District in the Allen Urban Growth Area.
And I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the amendments to the Title 17 zoning, Section 17.12, adding duplex, triplex, and residential as permitted uses in Village Commercial VC District in the Allen Urban Growth Area UGA. Comments?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate all the work that has gone into this and the patience that folks in the Allen Urban Growth Area have had as we continue to make improvements to code that allow uses on the properties that are there. And I'm also happy that we'll also continue to allow triplets in the Allen Urban Growth Area.
Want to hit me with this or no? And as for myself, you know, this one is close to my heart for many different reasons. I've been involved with this for a long time. When I first came in, one of the things I wanted to do was make some adjustments to this particular area. We ended up with the right staff to try and make some of it happen. Now, even when we fixed it or tried to fix it, there was still some problems with that and how that came about. But I do want to point out that there were some changes that are occurring right now, and although it hadn't been built on for years, with the changes we already made, we have applicants to change that whole area with a big giant project that will be wonderful if it comes to be. I want to remind everybody the reason why this thing started was the idea for many, not for everybody, that they were going to create a Leavenworth, and they would have these beautiful businesses downstairs and people living upstairs. The only problem is you can have that vision. There's a lot of things you may want, but it doesn't work that way. And nobody else saw that vision with money coming in. And when one did, he found it to be almost undoable. And it ended up costing him a lot and made it hard. So the opening that we already had created helped. This should help a lot more. With that being said, I'll be supporting it as well. Any further comments? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed, motion carries. Next up, it says in here that we have 2 hearings on this. So item number 10.4, 2 public hearings to consider the following. We'll start with number 1, close out the State Community Development Block Grant for the Microenterprise Assistance Program of $269,210, which ended September 30th, 2018. Who's staff? Are you presenting that? Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Lisa Smith, Enterprise for Equity. I don't know what else I should say. I got a text from Justin that he is really sick and his little baby's sick, so I'm here on his behalf.
Okay.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you. We accomplished a great deal on this grant. Our goal was to reach 110 people, 150 people attended our beginning information sessions. Of our 2-day business readiness workshops, 61 people completed those in Allen, Belfair, Shelton, and Camilch. Then 45 attended the 60-hour training, 35 completed, and then 23 were graduates. So these are people who graduated with comprehensive business plan, cash flow projections, etc. So why I'm excited is that we don't just have graduates of our program starting businesses and expanding. We have a collaboration that really functions beautifully. So of those who graduated or completed the program, 65% were startup. So this is incredible that we created an avenue for that. 21 of them received technical assistance from the Chamber of Commerce, the WSU Extension, Economic Development Council. 2 of the businesses expanded their enterprises with the help of the EDC, who found them larger spaces to grow their companies. One was My Painted Heart, and the other was Brilliant Moon. And then finally, WSU Extension really did a lot of work on evaluation. Did these people learn anything? What did they learn? Are they going to apply for a loan? Are they expanding? What were the limitations of the grant? And so we have good data to move forward. There's also just a recent article in the Kitsap Sun about our program. I'll make sure you get a copy of that. I think finally the most important thing is that we have demand. There's increased demand from all parts of the county to continue, but we accomplished great things.
Okay. Is there any questions for the staff in regards to the presentation on this? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions, one for staff and then one on process. Lisa, thank you for being here this morning and pinch hitting for Justin.
Yes.
What's the difference between somebody who completed the program and somebody who graduated?
Oh yeah, good point. To graduate, you have to write a comprehensive business plan. If you're a startup, you have to have 1 year of cash flow projections. If you're an existing business, you have to have 2 years. And so we consider those under 2 years, first 2 years as startup. And so it takes a while. If you're not ready, if you don't complete that business plan, we don't consider you a graduate. Those who are not graduates are still working on their plan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Chair, just on process, so this is 2 hearings?
Yeah.
Are you accepting, are there 2 motions? Or
Yeah,
would that be...
the way they have it set up in the book, in the agenda, is 2 hearings. So we have the 1 motion here in the front when the time comes. Right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
I just wanted to be clear if
no,
you were taking 1 motion or 2.
Yeah, because there isn't 2 motions in our book for the back. Okay, anybody else have any questions for staff? Hearing none, we will close that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody who in the public who would like to testify? Any public testimony? Hearing none, we'll close public testimony. We'll move to commissioner deliberations. Commissioners? And or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we close out the State Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, for the Microenterprise Assistance Program of $269,200, which ended September 30th, 2018.
And I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to close out the State Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, for the Microenterprise Assistance Program of $269,210, which ended September 30th, 2018. Comments?
Congratulations to all the partners. It kind of had a rocky start, but it seems like it ended up being really, really successful with good partnerships. And I just wanted to also congratulate you all for actually, I think the first time I've ever seen the county go after CDGB money. It's something that's generally just given to cities, and counties don't get it normally. And it was a function of having the Simpson mill shut down, and somebody was sitting next to me from the Department of Commerce on one side and you on the other side saying, we ought to go after this. And I appreciated everybody's energy around that and bring this, because especially as we go into the next hearing, to see this thing live on for longer.
Any comments?
Yeah, I concur. And I had a chance to meet some of the participants in the program earlier this fall. And I think, this is a great opportunity to build capacity and entrepreneurial spirit in Mason County and the region. And so I appreciated hearing their success stories and what they were able to get out of the program. And certainly think that even with some of the growing pains associated with getting this up and running, that we'll be even more successful with the second iteration.
And the same here. I'm very happy with how everything has worked out in the long run on this. You brought knowledge to our business communities and those that were searching at trying to entrepreneurs and make them successful. Long-term success is what you're giving them, and very thankful for that. And for all of us, we're getting more tax base and jobs. So with it, I'm very thankful, and I will be supporting that. Okay, so do we have a motion?
We did.
And I already read it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Next up, item number 2, to reapply for up to an additional $200,000 to extend the program. These hearings are to inform the citizen of the grant's past performance and availability of funds and eligible uses for the state CDBG, and receive comments on proposed activities specific to local microenterprise assistance programs. If you like, you can come up and just tell us what the grant and what difference it would be.
Yes, so first of all, we are applying because there's been demand. We can demonstrate people want to go through our program. They aren't able to because the funds ended. So demand is the most important thing I want to share. Secondly, those in that first crop are beginning to prepare for asking for a microloan. And so part of this new grant is a loan fund. The beautiful thing is that we went through all of the processes to get ready, and the county is ready to work with Enterprise for Equity to process those loans. And that was a Herculean effort. So we're excited about that. And then finally, I just want to say that central to the work Enterprise for Equity does with you in collaboration is civic engagement and leadership development. And I just want to say the past graduates, 6 graduates, have joined the North Mason Chamber of Commerce. Now, do you hear me? One of them applied to serve on the board, and he was accepted. So Marshall is on the board. So just as a part of our long-term investment in Mason County and in the business community, that's a really important detail I wanted to make sure you had.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on presentation? Yes.
Just for everybody listening,
Sure.
Can you list all of your partners?
Absolutely.
I think this really is once again kind of proves the power of partnerships in communities like ours.
Yeah, I work with a lot of partnerships, and it's not often that you have high collaboration, high trust, and so we're super excited about it. In the last grant, our hope in this future grant is to work with obviously the county staff, who's been incredible, the North Mason Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Council of Mason County, WSU Extension, Enterprise for Equity. Great. So those are the main partners, and we always want to outreach to others, but that's a core.
Great.
Yeah. And thank you for attending that event. It was super exciting for us.
Go ahead, please.
So of the new grant.
Yes.
how much of the 200,000 will be the seed money for the loans?
75,000.
Okay. And then you say there's graduates from the past program that are ready to apply for those loans?
Yeah, so it takes a while. Not everybody knows how to apply. You got to have your financials together. You have to make sure you can pay it back. So it's kind of an iterative process.
Okay.
But the important detail is that we spend a lot of time in that first grant to get ready to do these loans, and we're confident we could begin right away.
Okay.
With at least the past, as well as those that graduate in this next round.
Is there anything else that will be different from the previous?
You know,
program?
we are really intent on going into places like Matlock and spending more time in Hoodsport and Union, and making sure that we really outreach to those small, very rural communities so that they have as much access and advantage as the kind of the larger urban centers of Mason County. So that's one part. We really want to outreach. I think we have more word of mouth now. People know about it. And so we want to outreach more effectively. And of course, we want to move people through the program as quickly as we can.
And so the second one, is that a 2-year grant as well?
Right. I think so, or 18 months. I think it's 2 years.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Any other questions? So we will close that part and move to public testimony. Is there anybody in the public who'd like to testify? Anybody who would like to testify? Hearing none, we'll close and move to Commissioner deliberations and the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we submit an application to the Washington State Department of Commerce and sign the resolution with certifications of compliance and any other applicable paperwork for up to $200,000 to extend the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Economic Opportunity Grant for Local Micro Enterprise Assistance Program.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded for the approval to submit an application to Washington State Department of Commerce and sign the resolution with certifications of compliance and any other applicable paperwork for up to $200,000 to extend the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Economic Opportunity Grant for Local Micro Enterprise Assistance Programs. Any further comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries, and that hearing is closed. Great job, by the way.
Good luck.
That brings us to the end of our agenda. I will entertain, is there anything for the good of the order for laughs?
Not for me, no.
Okay, just so you know, so I can talk to you about it real quick, there seems to be a little confusion. We had a request to have AG represent us on those WIRAs, and you may get a phone call because of it, and I just want to remind you that we as a group agreed to do that. So if you have any questions, you might want to let them know that that's what we wanted to do. With that,
I'm sorry, from who?
it probably come from Conservation District.
Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
Is there a role for Conservation District if ag is filled by a?
Well, everybody's able to attend, and I would hope that we would be open to any conversations they may want to bring with us, but the main thing is just making sure that ag is actually represented by ag. Okay. Anything further?
Appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. That was a lot.